I'm David Quinn. I'm the Northern Region Sales and Product Trainer for Toyota. So I look after all the dealerships in Queensland and Northern New South Wales. I shouldn't probably block that unless I'm going to do some shadow puppets. My responsibility is basically training salespeople, how to sell cars, explain things about how they work to customers, or guests as we like to call them these days. Now, two caveats on that. If you've had a good experience at a Toyota dealership, fantastic, that's all me. If you've had a shitty experience, I can't make them do what they do. I can only advise them and tell them, so hopefully it's more good than bad. Can I just get a show of hands? Who here drives a Toyota? Who here drives a Toyota for personal use? As well as work? Fantastic. For the rest of you, don't worry. I'm going to do my best to try and convince you today. No, I'm not going to, it's not about selling things. It's about giving you some bits of information, updates on what we've changed, what we've got, what we've updated. Now, the interesting thing about Toyota is a little bit about its history. We kicked it off in the 50s with Les Teese, bought 13 Land Cruisers, brought them down to the Snowy Mountains project and basically killed them, broke them, destroyed them. The difference was our response. The Japanese went, what? They're our toughest vehicles. What the hell did you do to them? They sent out engineers. Let's have a look and see what these crazy Aussies are doing to these vehicles. Pulled them apart, re-engineered them. All right, go again. Geez, all right, you broke the chassis again. We'll fix that again. This has basically been the start. Snowy Mountains project, Nuna mine out of West Australia, and basically in pretty much every mining site in Australia over the past 30 plus years. We're very proud of our heritage. I'm very proud of working for Toyota. I've spent 10 years doing this job for Toyota. I tried selling cars once for a little while. I wasn't very successful at it. I couldn't make things up, I couldn't lie to people, I couldn't try and bamboozle people the way that it used to be a few years back. So as they say, if you can't do, you teach. So that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. So it seems to have worked out okay for me. The guys do put up with me. High staff turnover in that industry. But one of the things that's also made me very passionate about my job is that the cars I've owned, I've only ever owned 4 cars in my life and I killed every single one of them. I'm not a nice driver. I drive like a bit of a tool. Legally, but a tool. At Toyota, I don't drive nicely. I haven't been able to kill one of these vehicles yet. And there's been certain circumstances where I've tried. So this is what sort of cemented my confidence in our product and what we offer and what we do. And it's also one of those reasons why. I'll ask again, show of hands, who bought their Toyota because it was sexy? Didn't think so. What about the straight line blistering performance on a racetrack? Didn't think so. So why do people buy Toyotas? Because of the badge and what it represents. It basically means that it will just keep on going, keep on going. Put it through its paces, it'll keep on going. Yeah, you can kill them. But generally, if you compare it to a lot of others out there, they will generally keep going a lot longer. We're not perfect. There's always been a lot of fun little problems we've had to fix up along the way, but that's the whole thing. We'll generally take responsibility for it and try and fix things as quickly as we possibly can. Now, one of the issues we're seeing lately is we're seeing that some manufacturers have a very quick turnaround in their changes, whereas we can't wait anymore. We can't wait for our end of model life cycle. We've got to change things a bit quicker than we have been. Getting that through to our Japanese counterparts is really hard sometimes. So we're working on it and we've seen some improvements. Now, probably one of the 2 vehicles you see most of in your working life would be 70 series on a regular basis. So some of what I'm going to cover here today goes through this. What I will ask, please ask questions. I'm not a lecturer, I'm a trainer, so throw questions at me, challenge me, try and make it hard for me. That's cool, I welcome that. But I will answer further questions at the end. There are certain things happening at the moment where I'll have to say, no, I can't answer that, you have to call this number to get answers. But everything else I'll try and do my best. Sound good? All right, I'll just move to the side so you can all see. So basically, 70 series and Hilux. We do have a TRD pack at the moment for Hilux, which is really cool. Everyone likes a nice looking truck. I'd really like to see the supercharger go back on it that we had a few years ago. But for now, we have what we have and we'll see what's happening next year. Trust me, some good stuff on the horizon. Now the key message on the 70 series were there was a lot of testing that was done and undertaken in Australia because we are the biggest market for this vehicle everywhere. However, we do have a lot of the developing nations, Brazil, Russia, India and China, who are basically screaming out for these. Now, not to say anything negative about any of these countries, but the expectations for safety, the expectations for emission controls, the expectations for passenger comfort, they don't really exist in a lot of these developing nations. They just want a vehicle that's tough, and robust and will do the job and get people back there. However, in Australia, we do have certain conditions that have to be met. We do have to have certain testing that has to be undertaken. So over 100,000 Ks of testing has been done throughout Australia in some of our harshest conditions. 70% of the test was conducted in off-road conditions, including everything from corrugated dirt roads, rugged cattle properties, severe washout, mining sites and so forth. Some of you guys, I have seen some familiar faces here. We've seen you and we've done some of our evaluations both on site and also you guys coming to Brisbane at times. This is what we try and do. We need to test ourselves and prove ourselves to you guys, because essentially what we make our cars for isn't just for the warm fuzzy feeling, it's to basically make it so that if you happen to have any incident or accident or anything in one of our cars, it makes business sense for you guys to be able to come back and get more. Doesn't make sense, doesn't it? We've also tuned our new safety features, including vehicle stability and traction control for optimum performance on dirt roads, rural properties and country highways. Now it's really funny, one of the first things I had to do when I started at Toyota, I had to go and present at the Fraser Island Fishing Comp. Some of you may remember that, have fond memories from back then, or maybe fuzzy memories from my recollections of it. But when we were presenting on that, I had a lot of people come up. At the time, the GXL Land Cruiser 70 had just gone to electric windows and carpet. And I was getting smashed of it. So, why do you do this? We're going through water crossings, it's going to bugger up the electrics. I had no idea. For me, it's just like, I want power windows. I'm a city boy. Oh, I want all these nice, comfortable things. Just trust me, I've never been to a mine site. These sort of vehicles, they're great fun to drive. They make you feel like you've got massive kahunas, but quite frankly, driving through an hour and a half of traffic every morning, I'd give it a pass. When it comes down to this testing, it's basically designed so that all this stuff will work with our customers, work with the sites they're driving them on, making sure they actually fit what your purpose is. Even stronger, due to the adoption of a stiffer new frame with thicker side rails, we've reduced the vibration and improved handling and stability. Don't worry, it's still got enough vibration to remind you it's a 70 series, but the idea is that the torsional rigidity is also a lot stronger and tougher and reinforced than it was previously. So if you are carrying a heavy load of 3 tonne behind you, carload of people in the vehicle, stuff in the tray, you can actually still know that if you're going to an off-road circumstance, you've got the best chance of getting back and not having that twisting translating through the actual cabin of the vehicle. Chassis box section has also been improved. We've amplified the torsional resistance for that. Now, just to give a perspective, like some of you would have seen the price rise that we had on these vehicles last year and probably would have had a mild heart attack because it went up by about $5.5 for the single cab. Any of you involved in the purchasing decisions or any of the companies out there would be like, holy crap, that's a hell of a lot of extra money. This is to give you a bit of perspective on the differences we've actually made. We've basically put a lot of standard stuff in these vehicles now that previously were unheard of in a vehicle such as 70 series. Most of the changes did go for the single cab chassis. So for those of you driving troopies, wagons or double cabs, unfortunately they do miss out on some of this stuff, such as the airbags, but they do get all the extra things like cruise control and the braking systems. So one of the things we had to do was try and have some sort of compliance with 5-star ANCAP safety rating. Now the really interesting thing is about ANCAP, 10 years ago, it basically was irrelevant. When I was selling cars, I maybe had 1 out of 40 people actually ask me about it. Every single one of those people were people that had recently come to Australia from Europe, where it wasn't a mandated safety thing. It's not even mandated in Australia yet. You can sell a car with no safety rating. But because the public is so enamoured of it and we've seen this happen, everyone out there has to comply with this. When it comes down to this safety rating, there's a lot of things that we do testing on that they don't, such as rear end impact safety testing, also rollover safety testing. The side impact test is also a voluntary test, so you get the points for it if you don't do it. But in saying that, it doesn't matter because it's all about public perception. We still have to try and comply with whatever these guys are asking of us because this is what our customers want. And of course, mining sites definitely want that as well. So when it comes down to the addition of 3 extra airbags in the single cab, that helped us get that safety standard up, but we also had to change the chassis, had to change the actual impact zones in the front of the vehicle. The cool thing is we were able to do it without actually taking away from the design of the vehicle. It's all on the underbody. I'll go through a few of these factors here. Cruise control, simple right-hand stalk setup we've been using on our vehicles for 19 years across every Toyota. So you go from a Yaris to a Corolla to a Cruiser to a Hilux to a 70 series to a Hi-Ace, most recent one with cruise control, they're all the same because it's very intuitive and easy to use. Using Toyota products for many, many years can assist in reducing fatigue, particularly for long distance driving, where considering where some of your sites are located, there's a lot of people driving many hours to get on site for those that aren't actually doing the fly in, fly out. And cutting company costs in the way of speeding fines and so forth. It's one of those things where, depending if it's a company-related vehicle, we know that sometimes if people don't put the claim to it, those speeding fines will be 4 times the rate of what it would be if it was to an individual. These things can actually add the costs up pretty quickly. It can also, depending on usage, cut down fuel costs. Improve workplace satisfaction and comfort. I know if I'm sitting in traffic, if I don't have cruise control, I'm not very happy. Same with on the freeway. Airbags. So we have 5 airbags in all 79 cab chassis models, 2 in all the rest. So we have your your front and passenger and driver airbag. They're both dual stage airbags, so depending on the level of severity and the impact speed, you do have 2 differing levels of impact. You don't want to have a slight impact under 40 km an hour or so and have the airbag smash in your face and break your nose when it actually wasn't warranted to have a deployment that severe. We also have, in the case of the curtain airbags, that goes across the entire curtain of the vehicle and shoots down. So people resting on their head on the window, probably going to be a bit of a wake-up call for them if they go off. We also have knee airbags. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about knee airbags, we have this across most of our passenger vehicles. They're generally not something that's going to actually add to your vehicle safety. But they are not going to save your life, but they're going to save the quality of your life. If you happen to have an accident in a vehicle that's got a knee airbag, you've got a better chance of actually being able to walk away and actually still play some of the sports or activities you normally do, run after the kids and so forth. We basically add this in not just for the safety side of things, but it's for the actual quality of your life preservation. No, said that. All our genuine accessories are also designed with the vehicle to basically take into consideration the airbag deployment channels to make sure that they actually will activate in the same manner, the same speed and same reaction time. We can't guarantee that for any other products out there. Obviously, there's a lot of companies out there that have a vested interest in making sure they do. So obviously your reputable brands generally will be pretty okay. We obviously want you to use Toyota Genuine first and foremost. You do, of course, get the whole extent of the new manufacturer's warranty across the vehicle and the accessory if fit at the time of purchase, which is just that. It's a bit of an idea about the deployment points. Generally, either side of the radiator, you have your two impact points, depending on G-force, speed, and what you actually impact. No one should ever give you any actual exact G-force rating of speed or anything like that because it is indeterminate. Yeah, it also depends on hitting the exact point, the right speed. When it comes down to a lot of the impacts, when it comes to airbags, we basically don't want them to just go off. We don't want them going off when they go over a speed bump. Anyone's ever seen Die Hard 4 with Justin Long, where he whacks the front of the car with a bin to set the airbag off? One where Bruce Willis kills a helicopter with a car. That's probably more memorable. Basically, it's one of those things where people see these sort of things in movies and think, oh, airbag's going to go off like that. Every little bump, I'm going to have the airbag off. You consider how many little dingles there are in traffic. If airbags are going off all the time, people are going to have a hell of a lot of work compensation going on because, oh, my neck. So when it comes down to it, we basically make it so they don't go off that easily. We want them to go off when they're required. Generally, with 99% of Toyotas, if the airbags deploy, the car is a write-off. So we don't necessarily want them to go off all the time, but it does come down to where it's impacted. So that's one of the reasons why the most common accident in metro areas, front quarter panel. People poking their nose out in traffic, I'm sure you guys have seen that. No one has any idea how long their car is, and they get wiped out. The really good thing about our airbag system is we have a secondary response. So basically, if they do get hit and the airbags aren't deployed, if they spin out on the other side of the road and get collected by another car, the airbags are still there ready for deployment. Unfortunately, there's always going to be circumstances where someone has an accident or a roll where basically the airbags aren't going to help you in those sort of circumstances. Brake assist. Now, one of the reasons, this is a very common sort of thing, we've got this on every one of our passenger vehicles, but brake assist is basically where it goes on the speed of application as opposed to the pressure of it. So basically, if you're driving along 100 km an hour, something jumps out in front of you, you go from the accelerator to the brake, the car picks up, it's an emergency. And will basically apply maximum braking force as quickly as possible. It will also bring you to the threshold of using ABS a lot quicker. With this system here, it's sort of like what gives an 80-year-old person with bad osteoporosis, and they're probably going to hit it fast but not too hard, the same sort of braking pressure as a younger, more fitter person. With this system here, it's just part of our braking suite of technology which has been added to the 70 series. ABS was only added to 70 series in 2012. So in 5 years, we've actually added a whole lot more stuff right now. Monitors the speed and force of the depression. If an emergency situation is detected, system applies additional brake pressure to give you maximum braking force. Anti-lock brakes, I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Gives you a little massage on your foot when you hit it too hard. No? But the whole benefit of that is to basically allow you to steer whilst under heavy braking. Because one of the things, if you've been in a lot of old school vehicles that just lock up, you spin out, you've got no control. There's no way to sort of regain that control. This way it sort of allows you to have a modicum of control to still steer whilst the vehicle's under heavy braking. Now, brake override system, not sure if anyone would have heard about this. This is something that came out of our 2009 fun in America about unintended acceleration. We've now added this to all of our vehicles across the entire range, where if you're accelerating and you start touching the brakes say and pulls back the accelerator regardless of what you do. Apologies guys, no line lockies in Toyotas anymore. So it sort of prevents you from having that sort of fun unless you go through the rigmarole of deactivating things, in which case you have no warranty coverage or insurance coverage. So please be careful with that. But with this system essentially does, if you're accelerating and you start braking, it'll take that away. It's also one of those things that came out about 90% of the court cases that we had in America about this were due to driver error or incorrectly fitted non-Toyota genuine floor mats. As you would have seen in the Toyotas that you've been driving, the floor mats will have an eyelet that will actually attach, so the actual mat will not be able to go up underneath the accelerator. Please be very, very careful of that. If you get into a vehicle, no matter what vehicle it is, if you've got a freely moving floor mat, please think about your own safety. Make sure you either chuck it out or just be very aware of where the position of that is. Obviously we recommend Toyota Genuine. Now, vehicle stability control, to put it simply, we've had this for many, many years now in a lot of our vehicles. This is a first for 70 series from August last year. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this was actually rated as being the best invention for vehicular safety since the seatbelts. It's meant to actually cut down about 35% of accidents in vehicles. Having this in 70 series, it's about time. Now, one of the analogies I like using, you're driving straight down the road, 100k an hour. Skippy jumps out. Everyone in your entire life has always told you, don't swerve, don't swerve, don't swerve, but you're an idiot like me. And you go, oh shit, off the side of the road. All of a sudden, stability control is monitoring exactly what your pitch and yaw rate sensor is doing. It's monitoring the wheel speed sensors, the actual steering wheel directional sensor, and it basically applies braking. Front right, rear left. Applies braking, swings you off the side of the road, and basically the other way, whichever way it is. And basically, it will also reduce throttle power. All of a sudden, you realise you're about to drive off into a ditch or into a tree, swing back the other way. What does every other car do that doesn't have stability control do? Boom, boom, roll over, and potentially have a fatality. What this will do is it will basically change the direction. It will actually change the throttle down even further and apply braking at the other wheels to basically make you see you swerved around. Again, perfect scenario. It's not always going to be exactly like that, but the circumstance stands that this is designed so that it will help you correct. It's like having a little hand on your shoulder. Just go, settle down. Let's get you back on track. I probably shouldn't say that this happens, this little orange light popped up for me at least 3 times every day driving to work, but it does. These days, if I get into a car without stability control, I have to be really careful. Control skidding, oversteer and understeer. So basically, if you're not steering too much or you're oversteering, I don't like those analogies because I'm like, well, if you're understeering, you're just going to steer some more. If you're oversteering, you'll correct it. But the idea is it's designed depending on where you're pointing the steering wheel. Everything is designed. Where you put that steering wheel, it will try and track everything to get you to where you're steering to. Hill start assist control. Who's ever had a burnt out clutch? Who's ever lent their vehicle or had someone drive their vehicle that probably shouldn't be driving a manual? And this is unfortunately one of the things we come to, that with the 70 series, a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to get an auto. No, it's not. We're not getting an auto, we never will with this vehicle. It's a manual only, which means if you've got some, say, less experienced drivers of manuals or people like that, in Hilux, same thing, anything like that, and you go, you just arrived and I can smell the clutch burn over here and I'm 100 metres away. This is where this will help these sort of people. We obviously want to add these things in for safety. We don't want people rolling back, so same thing, rolling back on a hill, but also a matter of hopefully saving your clutch a little bit as well. So active safety system assists the driver when accelerating from a standstill on a hill. It will automatically just hold, which is cool. It's like a third generation. It used to be you're going to press and hold for 2 seconds. Then it was basically you have to basically tap it. Now it'll just hold. It's very cool. Controls the brakes and keep the vehicle from rolling backwards when the driver switches from the brake pedal to the accelerator. And can assist drivers new or unfamiliar with manual transmission. Active traction control, this is a really cool thing because it's sort of like off-road traction control. Not many vehicles have this as yet, but the idea behind it is you can use it in high 4 or low 4, where it will actually provide a sort of like if you're in gravel or dirt or mud. Mud's actually fantastic. Anyone ever in an FJ Cruiser? FJ Cruiser was a vehicle I actually got to have a bit of a play with this in the mud and got to see how it actually worked. Unfortunately, we don't have them anymore. I can never afford one. Even though I work for Toyota, I can't afford one of the buggers, and they're all gone now. So if you have one for sale, let me know. When it comes to active traction control, it sort of works in the inverse of normal traction control. So as soon as you lose any traction on road, normal traction control just goes, pulls back the power, pull back, and lets you go without having too much wheel spin. With this, it basically knows there's going to be some wheel spin because you're in four-wheel drive mode. But what it will do is it'll actually break the individual wheel that's actually getting the power going to it, freewheeling, and actually apply more torque, more power to the wheels that do still have traction. And will alternate between them as they lose and gain grip. It's actually a pretty cool system. Transfer torque to the wheel with the most traction, and basically it's a reactive system. So unlike diff locks or crawl control, which you've got to activate yourself and turn on, and no, we don't have crawl control in 70 series, just an example. Similar technology on 200 series Prado, Hilux and Fortuner, and of course the now defunct FJ Cruiser. Skip that. All right, 5-star safety has become an expected standard in Australia, both passenger and commercial applications. It's got a rolling compliance expectation now. So previously it was that you can have a 10-year-old vehicle, hey, it's 5-star. Not anymore. It's basically a 3 or 4 year rolling circumstance. So if you don't get your vehicles retested or recomplied, they don't retain that forever. They start losing a star each year until they actually get the vehicle recomplied. So that's a really good thing for us going forward. It'll keep us on our toes, but it will also help other manufacturers do the same. Ultimately, we've got 65 manufacturers selling cars in Australia. There's about 48 selling in America, and trust me, the remaining guys would love to sell cars in America, but they've got much higher safety standards than we do. A lot of people you talk to, your general public, you guys, most people assume, oh, Australia's got to have good safety standards. And to a point we do, but out of all the developed OECD countries out there, we're around about 18th. We're actually not one of the top 3, 4, 5 countries out there. And it's the reason being is that we don't have things like rollover standards. We don't have things like our rear end impact standard. And when we do, we've actually got quite a low standard for those. 3 or 4 year changing standard, forcing car manufacturers to respond quicker, good for Toyota buyers. When new safety technology is available, rather than waiting for a whole model cycle, we have to proactively make changes mid-cycle and change it along. Now, our just-in-time production model, which would give some of you a headache when it comes down to what, I've got to wait 4 months, in this case actually works a bit better for us because we can make changes on the fly a bit easier than people that have months and months worth of stock sitting at the Port of Brisbane. Have a look at this impact testing we completed on the 70 series less than 12 months ago. Keep an eye on the actual cabin. Everything here, everything frontward of here is sacrificial. The entire car will destroy itself, crumple up, absorb the impact energy to prevent as much of that getting to here as possible. Give you a bit of perspective, that was a 2010 model. And you can see the door's off its hinge. It's actually had some impact in the A-pillar here as well. And we've basically only one airbag, so we don't have the extra coverage if the head was to hit the side. When it comes to the 2016 model, you can see quite a big difference there in regards to the actual integrity of the cabin and where you're going to be sitting. This is for you and people that work for you. It's what we needed to do. Glad we finally did it. Familiar? Anyone see roads like that? Thankfully, I now have a boss that I can say, I'm not driving at dawn or dusk, not through any roo areas. My first and worst trip I ever had was driving a Prius. I drove a Prius from Grafton to Goondiwindi at 6 o'clock at night. Yeah, idiot. Really stupid. But I drove with Mr. Magoo, 70k an hour the whole way. It was not fun. I'll never ever do that again. In this case here, unfortunately, we can't always dictate when people have to drive. Sometimes they will be driving at dawn or dusk when Skippy's off to have a drink of water. So we have to make sure we do testing to make sure that our vehicles are compliant with this sort of impact safety standards. So the impact testing for roos, impact at high speeds. So all of our testing is done 70, 80k an hour. Yeah, obviously we do have speeds of 100, 110k an hour, but I kind of would hope that you would see it and brake, and that would be some sort of reduction in speed. When it comes down to this, we've simulated the Kangaroo impact speed at 70k mass in these tests. We measure the displacement, ensure no damage to critical vehicle components, because the idea is we don't necessarily want to just save your life, we want you to be able to keep driving, because if you're in the middle of nowhere, well, if you're stuck there for hours and hours, it's like, well, that kind of ruins your day as much as hitting the roof in the first place. Designed for passenger safety and vehicle drivability. This is at 80 km an hour. And that sort of speed, that sort of impact point, you probably would have the airbag still going off. Sorry? No. Yeah. But considering where the actual impact zone is, that's a very common area to have it. So, yeah. I know there's probably other testing we do have there in the background. This is the only stuff they've actually given me. The external design, one of the things that we wanted to not change was actually the look of the car. We're pretty happy with how it looks. Beefy, robust, very identifiable as a 70 series. So one of the cool things, we've been able to actually change a lot of the underpinning structure, the chassis, the strength, without actually changing the overall look on the outside. Added in auto-locking hubs, and we've also got a slightly revised bonnet with a bit more strength within it as well. Revised front panels, door skins and A-pillar for crash performance. We've also kept the styling the same. Chassis frame, thicker with cross-sectional area, re-engineered cross members, torsional rigidity and crash performance. This is a truck. It's designed so it's got the 6 connection points. So if you have the twisting of the actual cross members in the chassis, it's actually not going to translate to the cabin. Unlike a lot of the other four-wheel drivers out there, which are still, they're not a body on frame. They're actually a fully integrated body where if you do any really crazy stuff, all that movement's going to go through the pillars of the car and through the dash and crack things and break things. All variants have dash mounted buttons for VSC and manual DPF regeneration, and we've also got the cruise control stalk added to the steering wheel. If you've got any questions about DPF, we'll leave it for the last 10 minutes. All variants get an accessory fuse box with 10 fuse points as standard. You can upgrade that to 20 fuse points with a genuine auxiliary battery kit. So that's pretty cool. Add a lot of extra electrics on there, you can do that. Transmission was also changed to make it a bit more fuel efficient, more drivable, to feel a bit better, particularly at high speed. So the 5th gear was made so it's better for highway driving. It does still have quite a big drone, but not as bad as it was at 100, 110 km an hour. And also the second, that was more about driving around the city sort of thing, cut down the fuel use when you stop traffic and trying to manoeuvre that fun manual. Reduced fuel consumption by up to 10%, down to 10.7 litres per 100k, which these days, looking at all the hybrids and stuff we sell, they're still pretty hefty, but it is a 4.5 litre V8 after all, and usually it's going to be pulling or carrying some stuff, so looking at it from that perspective. We've also updated the tray, so similar to the Hilux and so forth, we've gone to the nylon engineered tray hinges. So they're basically easy for the drop sides and also very, very durable. No squeaks, rattles and groans, and basically designed to last 10 plus years in the sun and environment that we put them through. We've gone from 250 MPa steel up to 450 MPa steel, 80% increase in strength. That's a huge change. It wasn't something we really needed to do too much on. A slight improvement would have been good. That's a hell of an improvement on what we've done with that. Nylon hinges and drop catches adopted. Internal load anchors now available in steel tray body. Every time we change the anchors from being the outside to the inside and make it one or the other, we get crucified. We need to have both of them available, which is a fair call. Heavy duty mounts adapted. Sorry. Heavy duty mounts adopted for new tray bodies as well. And other optional accessories such as underbody toolbox, slide out steps, second battery box and quick release ladder racks are also available, along with a heap of other stuff. Questions? What do they charge for it? Did they change the wheel track, wheel set, wheel track? Nah, didn't change it at all. When you drive a 70 series, you still have 3 centimetres wider on each side. That's this much, that much. 3 centimetres wider on each side on a 30 centimetre wheel, which is generally going to be picked up when you're driving through black soil. How many vehicles are really good in driving in black soil? Nothing's very good in black soil. It's a very, very common thing where the Japanese go, well, you're having no problem selling them. We can't offer a fix for it because there's no perceived fix needed from Japan or Australia TMCA. But when it comes down to it, it's more of a customer preference type thing. So people have changed the wheels, aftermarket providers do shims and so forth. We don't want to basically be involved with any of that because it sort of does void the new car warranty to a point about that area of the vehicle. It just wasn't seen as a big enough thing to try re-engineer. It would have taken a lot of muck around. The idea was when we changed it over, we had to change over from the V6 to the V8 to have compliance with Euro regulations when we hit Euro 4 back 10 years ago. It was a compliance thing, changing the chassis wasn't needed. And to be honest, I have driven this through most circumstances, including washouts, rutted roads where they've got their pre-designed tracks they're driving down. And yeah, there's a little bit of crabbing, but to be honest, it's not to that point. The new single cab trays are also increased in length by another 5 centimetres. They can fit 2 pallets side by side, no change to the bodybuilder's guide for anyone that does any sort of bodybuilding on these vehicles. Other accessories, some of you may have seen the industry packs we have available. There haven't been a massive amount of pickup on them. I know a lot of that comes down to the pricing of it, so I completely understand when it comes to the companies going, you know what, I can pick and choose bits and pieces. Hilux, that was the biggest problem, is that here's the pack, no, you can only have the whole pack. At least with the 70 series, with the pack we released August last year, you can actually interchange and move between different parts of it. You don't have to have it all added in. In-vehicle monitoring system, battery isolator, handbrake alert, light bar, all the other bits and pieces that you may need or want, and can be ordered individually. Fog lamps and all SR5 variants will change from halogen to LED, so light emitting diodes use less power. They're basically generally a little bit brighter and also last longer as well. The floor material of all SR variants will change from carpet to PVC for added durability. I know a few people here would be like, yes, thank God, why the hell do we have carpet? It'd be nice to have an option for both. Unfortunately, we've gone all one way and then changed all back to all the other way. So we love doing that. Does anyone get an SR with carpet and have the rubber floor mats? They're good floor mats, aren't they? They cover up 95% of the carpet. Means if you want to sell it on as a trade-in vehicle, you're actually going to get more money. But Toyota don't listen to me when it comes to those sort of things. Automatic extra cab variants will be now available in all grades. Hey! So anyone dealing with any sort of local councils and so forth, or companies that don't need the actual 5 seats, but they want to have the extra space behind the vehicle, we now have that available. It's only been 15 years, and we've only asked for it for 15 years to bring it back. Door handles on SR variants will change from chrome to black, just to sort of distinguish it between that and the SR5. Now, any of you drive Toyota passenger vehicles, or friends or family drive Toyota passenger vehicles? Just a really quick update on them. So basically what we've got is we've got Toyota Safety Sense, so we've got 3 components in Toyota Safety Sense. Now, a lot of our systems we've now updated using LiDAR, so we're using light detection and ranging, basically a little module at the top behind the rear vision mirror, and it's designed to pick up the lines on the road to give you lane departure warning, which will actually knock you back in place if you're going over the lanes. We've also got automatic high beam, good for straight roads. Yes, winding bends 100k an hour, can be a little bit skew if. And we've also got automated braking. So basically if it picks up an object in front of you, it'll actually warn you. If you don't do anything at the last moment before you have the impact, it'll hit the brakes. Now we don't have that in any of our commercials as yet, but we will see that down the track. But for our passenger cars, Corolla, Yaris, RAV4, Kluger and so forth, this is basically becoming standard fare across these vehicles. Very, very good if you've got any loved ones driving Toyotas and they're considering what sort of passenger car they'll be looking at buying, because this is good stuff. 7 airbags minimum standard across all of our passenger vehicles, our light SUV, our heavy SUV across Land Cruiser, Prado, RAV4, Kluger and so forth. And we'll see that becoming more of a standard, and also more airbags. Updated connected mobility rolling out, started with next gen Camry in November. Anyone that's actually tried to use any of our connected mobility at the moment may have had it working for 12 months, and then the last 12 months has sort of gone a bit, how's your father? It's getting better. I'm a geek. I use 2 different phones. I've got multiple computers, and I can't get it working at the moment. So it's a little bit of an annoyance. But it's also one of those things where most people own their cars for longer than a few years. So over this period of time, they will have that updated to be better. Daytime running lamps also becoming common across a lot of our vehicles. One of the things about this is it's voted as one of the top 3 advancements for automotive safety. In Europe, it's been linked to a 30% reduction in daytime accidents. It's also one of those things where commonly in the sales arena, it'll be like, oh, I can't possibly buy a grey car or a silver car or a dark car. They won't be able to see me at dawn or dusk. It eliminates all of that. That's very much an old school sort of mentality, but it does still come out a lot in our dealers, where the idea is it's not for illumination, it's just to say, I'm here, don't hit me. And they look cool too. Just understand, if any police ever pull you over with those, you can point out in the manual, it's lower lumens, it's not illumination, and don't find me. Additional expected standards such as radar cruise control and similar driver range will become very, very common, and this is happening very fast. Just think about mobile phones from 10 years ago to what mobile phones are now. This sort of stuff is catching up very quickly with cars, and it's making us work harder, which is a good thing for you guys, your safety, and also connectivity. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate your time. Thanks.